Frankie, international football is now behind us. Premier League football is ahead of us. West Ham Brentford on Monday night. But before we discuss the actual football, there's been quite a lot happening for what is usually quite a quiet time for West Ham. I think the biggest news possibly is the backroom team of Nuno Espirito Santo. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, I watched a video on it and just really agreed that it's quite an unusual setup. Look, one thing I don't want to do is discredit the people who have been given the opportunity, because I think they've all worked very, very hard. I think they've been here for a very long time. I thought their commitment and dedication to West Ham has been fantastic. And there's part of me that really quite likes the sentiment of West Ham, stay in West Ham, keeping our identity, everything that we've been losing, to be perfectly honest with you. And these people who are being given an opportunity, I think it's a really good thing to see. And I think it hopefully can instill a bit of they know what West Ham's all about. So I like that part of it. Part of me would like to see it more often, to be honest. People getting opportunities on merit rather than just I bring in my old mates that, jobs for the boys type thing, which football seems to be these days. So, and look, if Nuno has genuinely come in and seen their value and seen their worth and understood that they continue to bring in, especially as those youngsters are progressing, those members of staff have been with those youngsters for a long time now, familiar faces, know how they play, can explain to the manager how they play and how to get the best out of them. We might even see more youngsters breaking into the first team because of that. So I love all of that. And I have a lot more respect for Nuno if this is genuinely something he's looked at and gone, do you know what? You deserve this opportunity. However, I find it very hard to believe. It's very unusual, and it does feel a little bit like he's just not been given full reign to have whoever he wants. But do you know what? I'm going to stay on the positive side of this one. I'm going to keep with the fact that it's been done for the right reasons. I'm going to believe that he's doing it based on merit, because at some point, Gio, you have to not play devil's advocate and not try and read into things too much. So I'm going to say it's all been done for the right reasons, and it's a very good thing.
I think all things can be true, though, right? I think sometimes people, not everyone, but there's a few subscribers will think either you love it or you hate it, and you can't be a bit of both. And I'm still a bit of both. I still suspect there's going to be more that join West Ham. I still think he'll bring in a couple of his coaches eventually, whether it's next week, next month, or whatever. I think because he'll know how the land lies at Nottingham Forest, because there's three of his usual team are still at Nottingham Forest, so he'll know exactly what's going on over there. They'll know exactly what's going on in there in terms of the feeling. Are they involved? Or has Ange come in and just pushed them to one side, so they're still there, but they're not really involved, so they're just waiting to get sacked, or is Nottingham Forest waiting for us to go try get them? Maybe we're negotiating, maybe we're speaking to Nottingham Forest and saying, look, we're not paying the full whack compensation here because they're not really Postecoglou's coaches, so you don't really want them there. We want them, but we're not. So we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. I still think that those from the academy being involved is a positive thing, though. And what you were speaking about, like the identity, I think that's very true. And we've heard for quite some time now that there's a lack of characters in the dressing room. I think naturally and understandably, we all look at the players and as the problem, but actually maybe it can also be the coaching team too. Maybe actually the coaching team can be those lacking characters, because I have to be honest with you, when I listen to Potter and Lopetegui speak, at no point did I listen to them and think, brilliant, can't wait for the game now, you've got me really pumped up, I'm ready to go. That never ever happened. So it might be that actually the dressing room's missing characters from the coaching side of it too, and hopefully those four in particular can bring that and give us something. Because one thing I will say, the attitude against Everton and the attitude against Arsenal by the players was different to the attitude we'd seen so far this season, in the sense that we conceded a goal, heads didn't drop, they kept on going, they kept on fighting, they put in 100% effort as far as I'm concerned. So there was an improvement from the players in that aspect, but we didn't sign any players. So if there was an uplift from the character side of it in that dressing room, it would have been from the coaching team. I still think my ideal world would be, we've got people at West Ham that stay there, they're involved in the first team, the head coach brings in his own, and when he buggers off, he takes them with him. But the original ones stay behind and they continue under the new one. But progression's important. I think it's really important that, we speak of it from the players aspect, which is, if you're 18, 19, you come to West Ham, you want to be able to sell them the dream, which is, you come in here and you do well, you'll get in the first team, we'll give you an opportunity at this club. You've got to display that to attract the top talent. We're not the best at it at the minute. Hopefully that'll change. But I think the same could be said for the academy staff as well. That if you're going to go out and try and headhunt a couple of the best academy staff, maybe some of them will have aspirations that they're going to go on and work at first team level eventually. If you can then say, well, at West Ham, we promote you. If you do well at the academy level and you want to get promoted, we will give you that opportunity of working with the first team as well. So actually, it's win-win as far as I'm concerned. So I'm still pleased. I still remain concerned. I'm still not 100%. No one will convince me that this is Nuno's ideal. He just won't. He's had the same people at every club. Suddenly, he leaves Nottingham Forest finishing 7th and goes, you know what? Don't want to work with that lot anymore. I just find it incredibly difficult. But for now, that's what he's got to work with. And fingers crossed, Nuno's the brains behind it all, and it's not his assistant manager. We're to find out. So I'm feeling all right about it for now. Anything you want to talk about in regards to that topic, Frankie, before we move on to the next one?
No. I think that's pretty much summed it up.
Can I point people in direction of the new sponsor before we move on to the next topic?
Absolutely.
Right. Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, listen up. We've got a new sponsor, but the best thing, it's a fancy football app. And the even better thing about it is it's free. It's free to download. It's free to play. It doesn't cost you a penny. And it's not like your traditional fantasy league where you sign up for the season. After 4 games, you can't be arsed. You forgot all about it, and that's that. No, this is different. There's a few twists and a few turns to it. So, for example, you can only use the players you get offered. You get offered one player every 4 hours by agent money. You either sign him or you reject him and take the cash instead. And then the players you've accepted, that's who you use to build a team for the weekend. But you're not in one big league. Oh, no. You go into a mini league. You have a head-to-head fixture for the weekend. You beat your opponent, you get 3 points. There's promotions involved as well. The higher up you go, the more rewards you get. The more rewards you've got, the more money you can spend on salary. So when you get offered a top player, you can actually afford to sign him. So get it downloaded. Links in the description below. I'm probably doing a bad job of explaining it, but it's one of those apps. Just play it yourself and you'll understand exactly what I'm referring to. Links in the description below. It's important that you use that link. Well, it's important for me and it's important for Gonzo that you use that link, because if you download it, we'll get a little bit of money from them. Just a little thank you. Say thanks for that download, Geo. No problem. But if you go on the app and download it yourself, we don't get anything. So please don't do that. Please use the link in the description below. But get it downloaded. Give it a go. I've been playing it since last season, and the proof's in the pudding, because there's a Hammers chat league. The code to join it is in the description below as well. And if you go on there and check out my team, it's much better than your team, because I've been playing it for so long. I've built my team up, and I've got 1 or 2 players in that team that you'll probably boo at. I've got Declan Rice. Declan Rice is in my team. I know. Anyway, Frankie, shall we move on to the next topic?
Let's do it.
It's about a player that's definitely not in my team, Niclas Fullkrug. You were sort of not his biggest fan. Then you got on the Fullkrug train a little bit with pre-season. You had a little bit of hope, and then you were disappointed by what you've seen from him this season. Well, he's out now. He's injured.
Yeah, bought into the spin of pre-season, and maybe I'll let you influence me a little bit too much, mate. But I always felt it was a really bad signing. I just didn't like it. I didn't think he was proven at the top level. Kane went to, and I know Kane is a is an excellent striker, but he made that league look easy the second he walked in there. And Fullkrug, yeah, okay, he'd get 8 or 9 a season, but I just felt like in the Premier League that drops to 2 or 3 or 4, and that's why I always had the bet with you that I said I don't think Fullkrug would ever meet double figures in the Premier League, and I just stood by it. If he can't do it in the German league, there's no way he's going to get double figures in the Premier League. So I always thought it wasn't the right signing. I didn't really understand the signing, didn't like it, but in that pre-season, he showed a character. He showed a bit of fun, which I think where the team was, I think we needed some humour and we needed to lift the spirits of everybody in the camp at that particular time. Things felt flat across the board. It felt flat from the management. It felt flat all round. So I felt like his character and his enthusiasm and all of the talk that he said about he's ready and raring to go and he's fit and he's worked so hard, I just thought like we might see, we might. And I still
something.
I didn't think he'd still get double figures, but I thought he might be a useful player. What I'd struggle with is he was touted to be this big, strong. This is the opinion that we had, and in pre-season, everyone's saying, "Oh, he's looking so fit. He's a machine," and blah blah blah. And he just don't look that big on the pitch. In fact, because he looked so fit and he looked a bit leaner than he did last season, he looked even less of a presence and less of a threat than he did last year when he wasn't super fit and supposed to be firing all cylinders. He seemed to have a bit of stockiness about him last season. He come back this season and just looks, just he lost his bit of presence that I felt he did have last season. So look, I think it's even worse than he was last year, to be honest. I saw a player who
I agree with that. I'm a Fullkrug fan. I was a fan of him in the Bundesliga. I didn't think it was the right signing for us. We paid a lot of money for a player that was the wrong side of 30. And I never understood the signing because we just didn't really play the way that you need to play around Fullkrug. You need to get players close to him, and we've never done that. But when he has played this season, I've been very disappointed. I thought some games he was sort of falling over quite easily, and there was no aggressiveness. There was no bite from him. Where I want to see almost Andy Carroll style. Like, granted, you probably can't play the way Andy Carroll played anymore with your elbows and stuff, but I wanted to see a bit more from him, trying to bully the defenders. But pretty much every game I've seen him play, he's the one getting bullied, and that's been the most disappointing thing for me, because I think in the games that we played this season, we almost need a Michail Antonio type striker, running the channels, running after everything, trying to win us free kicks and throw-ins high up the pitch to allow us to get up. He can't do that. I accept that, but I still think he should be able to make the ball stick a little bit, and he's just been uninvolved in most games. And when I seen that he got injured, I generally wasn't arsed, Frankie. I was a bit like, oh, whatever. I'm not surprised, and I'm not bothered. And I think that's the reflection of how I feel about him, which it's a shame. I always hate when I feel like transfers have failed, but ultimately it does feel like that. It does provide an opportunity, though, whether it's for Marshall, whether it's for Wilson, whether Nuno's got to change it. What would you ideally like to see up front on Monday?
Yeah, it's a tough one because I don't love any option that we've got available to us right now.
No, either do I.
Totally honest, I really don't. I don't love the idea of, which I think is probably the two most likely for me, is Wilson plays because he's the senior player. That would make sense. He's experienced and everything else. The other option is we end up seeing either Paqueta or Bowen move centrally, which is probably quite likely. And I don't really like that either, because I think Bowen becomes less effective. Paqueta, his work rate has been so poor these last few games that he ain't firing on all cylinders. So he's never looked great up there on his own when we have tried it. And if we've got an out of form Paqueta up there doing it, then I think we will just really lack any sort of firepower or any sort of threat up there. So the only positive potential of Paqueta playing up there is he might link up with Somerville quite well, because Somerville is direct, because he's got a lot of pace. Paquetá potentially would read that and maybe would get some successes of linking up with Somerville over on that side, and maybe Bowen can sort of cut inside and do what he does from the right wing, which he does so effectively. But any of those options, I'm not that enthusiastic by, and I think it just again proves that I got a lot of I didn't get any stick. That's the wrong
You
word.
got some. I've seen it.
When I was saying about how desperate I thought
Yeah.
we needed a striker, and I thought that was number one on my list, everyone said, not everyone, that's wrong words. Lots of people said that there's more important positions that we need to fill. I'm looking at it right now, thinking I'd give anything for a striker again, because I just, we just are screaming out for. And even like I said to you, I was never convinced with Fullkrug. That was always my worry. And I said that to you. The biggest worry is Fullkrug being your main man that you've got to depend on. He is not a dependable man to be relying on to be your main striker.
Yeah.
So
well, here's the thing, right? Even if Fullkrug was fit for Monday, we'd still be having this conversation.
Yeah, that's right.
But he would be one of those options that you discuss and dismiss quite quickly and say, well, we could play him, but he's not really been doing it, so I don't really want to see him up front, and so on and so forth. So him being injured it's not actually causing a problem. The problem already existed. He's just not part of the possible solution. That's all. The one player you didn't mention, though, was Callum Marshall. I watched him against Germany. I watched the start of the Wales-Belgium game. A bloody good game that was. But then when I heard Marshall had come on, that game was starting to tail off a little bit. So I switched over and watched Callum Marshall. Nearly scored, to be fair. He had a good chance. It was on his right foot, though. It was a good chance, good movement, good ball in, good control, decent effort, good save. Bit unlucky. It was one of them. I thought, if he'd scored, I appreciate it's for Ireland, but because he's just going to score against Germany in a World Cup qualifier, I think that's almost enough to say, start me against Brentford. Like I've just gone and scored in a World Cup qualifier against one of the best countries there is. Start me. But I do wonder if it was on his left foot, maybe he would just caught it a little bit sweeter, had a little bit more power behind it. But it was still a good effort. Would you play him?
My biggest concern is the type of game that Monday night is going to be.
Yeah.
We've got a situation with fans and attendance. We've got the pressures of, like we've all said, how important this game is in the running that we've got to get ourselves out of the trouble we're in. That is an incredible weight to put on the shoulders of a young man. I do feel like he should feature, and especially if the option is Callum Wilson. 60th minute, and I would preempt this. I would be saying to Marshall and Callum Wilson, look, Wilson, we know you've got the experience in the Premier League. Get out there, give us a foothold, give us a start, get us into the game, try and get us, in front. And then you bring on Marshall on the 60th minute and you tell him, be ready. You prepare him psychologically, mentally, and you say to Marshall, on that 60th minute, mate, be ready because you're coming on. And for the last half an hour on the game, we're going to be relying on you as our striker. So it gives him preparation. He can work on that this week. He can get himself nice and ready. I just feel putting him out there from the very beginning, depending on how the atmosphere is going to be, depending on how things feel within that stadium, and the pressure that's on this football game, I'm not sure it's the right situation to start him.
Well,
if it was different circumstances, if we were going into that stadium and all the fans were in there and we were right behind him and Nuno's just come in and we're all ready and raring to go, I think it might be a different conversation. But it's just the situation that surrounds it that I'm a bit concerned about.
Well, regarding the situation, the pressures, well, your points are valid, of course, but I want to pitch to you the next three games, and I basically want you to tell me which one you think would be best to start Callum Marshall in. So we've got Brentford at home on Monday, then we're away to Leeds, then we're at home to Newcastle United. Which of the three do you think would be the best game in terms of the situation to start? I mean, which one would be the worst?
I still think Brentford's the worst.
Actually, I think Leeds is.
I don't mind Leeds. Look, we've had situations where, young lads go away. Leeds, we know what type of team they are. They're difficult to play against. That's a football situation. But at the end of the day, if Marshall's ready, he's ready to play in games like that. Like they're at the end of the day.
You could say that about Brentford, though, surely.
I just feel like the whole thing surrounding it is just not a healthy environment. I think it's going to feel odd in that stadium. A Monday night, under the lights, half empty stadium. That to me just feels odd. For me, it's just, and especially if it goes the wrong way, that could get very toxic very, very quickly. And I just don't like the feeling of it. So I just don't think you put a young lad in a situation like that, sticking him out to Leeds and go and express yourself, go and give it what you've got against one of the. It would be a disservice actually to call Leeds a lesser side in the Premier League, because they are a good football club. They're going to have a real lively stadium. Ellen Road isn't an easy place to go.
That was my concern.
But there are some players. If it was me and you're asking me, going to Ellen Road, a stadium, like, I would be thriving on that. If I knew I was starting in that game, I'd be so up for it.
But maybe Callum Marshall would thrive on Monday night. Maybe Callum Marshall's like, do you know what? I'm buzzing. I'm going to go out there.
And Geo, maybe that actually a slightly sterile atmosphere, he might stroll out there and take to it and be absolutely no problem at all. I just feel if we beat Brentford, so say Callum Wilson starts, we go 1-0 in front and Wilson gets us ahead and we see that game out, there is nowhere near as much pressure on the Leeds game as there is on this Brentford one. This Brentford game to me is everything. Like, we have to get 3 points on Monday night.
I completely agree. But hypothetically then, if we lose against Brentford, the Leeds game even more difficult.
I agree. In that scenario, I completely agree. Then that Leeds game becomes massive again. And then it is again different. But this is exactly why youngsters don't get as many opportunities they should in the Premier League anymore, because there's so much riding on Premier League football, so much money involved, that it becomes, so you lose that game, then you're looking at Leeds and you're thinking, cool, we've got to win this one because Newcastle is going to be really tough. And the last thing you want to do is end up losing all three. So a manager naturally does the easy option, which is play the experienced Premier League player, even if there's a youngster knocking on the door. Nuno's going to be coming for less flack by playing. Well, maybe he wouldn't, because our fans are slightly different. We quite like rolling the dice on the youth, and maybe we would be less critical of that. But typically, a manager would come in for more stick for making a bold decision. I just, the Brentford thing, mate, the whole thing around it. Look, I do understand why, and that people have been on TalkSport this week talking about it and how it's important we stick to our guns. And I get it. And as much as I think Brentford is so, so important, and you know me, I go no matter what type attitude. It's half term. The boy would love to go. The boy hasn't been to a West Ham game in ages. I can take him on Monday night, no issues, with no school. We were ready to go, but we're not going, because we are going to do our bit and we are going to stick to our guns and we are going to be staunch in what we believe. So we're not going to be attending. So just look, I wish it was different circumstances, Gio. I wish we was going into that Brentford game with Nuno's first home game, with every single person behind that team.
Well, can I just pick you up on that? We'll discuss the boycott on a video for the weekend and the Brentford game itself and predictions and stuff. But as you've naturally come on to this, and you've mentioned a few times about the people in the ground and support and stuff, is there an argument, though, that those that are in attendance will be behind the team, because the ones not in attendance are probably the ones that are against the board? So actually, is it not? Do you not think that's a... Because
I'm going to come in, but I'm going to speak my mind, because I always do. The sort of people who are happy with the situation and haven't got it, and don't have that together, united. All the people who have turned away, for me, are the people that I used to go to West Ham with. A lot of the people that I used to go with don't go anymore. They are the people who stand up and make noise. The typical people that are not on that side of things are a bit happy-clappy. are a bit sing I'm forever blowing bubbles once at the beginning of the game, and that's as much as you get out of them. So look, people will see that as quite a harsh comment, but the people that I know are the people who used to stand and be a little bit vocal and really make a lot of noise and be so passionate that it boils over sometimes. And we really, all them away games that they go to, they're the people who I know, no, I'm not talking for everyone here, but they're the people that I know that are the ones that are turning away, and they are the ones that are sticking together. So I feel like that atmosphere will, the word I said, there is less chance of it going toxic with those that will go, I think. Yeah. Because I don't think they'd boo and I don't think they'd turn. But I feel like it could be very, very sterile. That ground is sterile at the best of times, even when it's packed out with 60,000 fans. So with 20,000 missing, it could feel very, very odd. That's all I feel.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think, I can't sit here and complain about the stadium, etc., then suddenly start. I know I'm not defending the stadium per se, but sometimes it can be hand in hand, the atmosphere of the stadium, etc. I think a lot of those that are going on Monday are going to support the team and to support Nuno with his first home game and stuff like that. Do I think it will trigger a really good atmosphere? No, but do you know what? It almost doesn't matter who we were playing on Monday and who was going on Monday. I still think it probably won't trigger a good atmosphere because I don't think it really exists too much at the London Stadium anymore, kind of thing. But I agree with what you've said. There's less chance, of it turning and it getting, the booing and stuff. Maybe if we're 1-0 down at half time, imagine they'll boo because they turned up hoping we'd win and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just think Monday, get Marshall in there. And there is a lot of pressure on your shoulders and it is a little bit sink or swim. But this is what I think young players' opportunities are. You get an opportunity when something's happened, whether there's suspensions or injuries or out of form. You're usually the third person in the pecking order. But I think when the opportunity presents itself, I think you've got to give the youngster that chance. He might only get 2 or 3 games. If he's not doing it, he's out, and he probably won't see first team football ever again at West Ham because it is very cutthroat and it is very, very ruthless. But if we won't play Marshall now when Fullkrug's injured, Wilson can only probably play an hour anyway, and that's it. That's the only strikers we've got. Then he's probably never going to play at West Ham. It is a big game. I agree with you. We do need to win. Is starting Marshall up front the best chance of winning the game? The truth is, I don't know, Frankie. We haven't seen him enough to say either way. And I think if you put Paquette up there, you can then move Fernandez up and bring in another midfielder. That might help. But in this type of game, I want to see a natural striker up front because I think Brentford will sit back and they'll be quite defensive and they'll try to play counter-attacking football. So I think it's important we've got a striker on there that gives us the best chance of breaking them down. Who was it we played? Spurs in the first half. We had our half chances. The ball was going to the box. There was just no bloody striker. And we can't afford that against Brentford. So that's why, for me, it's between Wilson and Marshall. At the minute, I'd prefer to see Marshall. I'd understand why if he goes Wilson. I think this is one of the few games that might actually suit him. I think Marshall will be better suited against Newcastle, given how both teams are likely to play. Wilson will be suited up front, 30 yards away from a teammate, getting the ball launched at him all the time. But against Brentford, I think we're more likely to see the ball be a little bit higher up the pitch and reduce Wilson's weaknesses, which is his lack of pace, etc. So hopefully Marshall, but I'm okay with Wilson for this one.
Let's be honest as well. Against Nottingham Forest, Wilson looked half-handy. So,
yeah, for 10 minutes.
Yeah, but
can he do it for an hour though?
That is a big question that we need to find out, don't we?
Yeah, so I'm okay with Wilson starting this one. I'm okay with him starting. I would just prefer Marshall. I think now's the time, son. Go in there. You've got the thing is, this is the advantage of his coaching team. Marshall will know he's got, granted, Lepine's goalkeeping coach, but assuming they have a form of relationship, Marshall will go on the pitch knowing that Nuno's backroom staff are all rooting for him. They've all got confidence in him. Mark Robson, Steve Potts, one of them will be giving him a pep talk saying, I believe in you, son. Get out there and show him what you can do. I think it's a good opportunity as he's possibly ever going to get, really. So fingers crossed if he does get it, he takes it. But anyway, Frankie, I'll catch up with you over the weekend. We'll look ahead to the Brentford game, see what you're feeling, discuss the boycott a little bit. And before we go, the one thing I do want to add, if you haven't seen it, go have a look at Thomas Souček's post on Twitter during the week. It's got nothing to do with West Ham. It's all about being captain of Czechia, but they got beat. They drew with Croatia, then they got beat by the Faroe Islands. Their team have come in for a lot of stick. Souček's come in for a lot of criticism from the fans and the media, and he put up a post on Twitter, and I think it's really good, actually. It's just pure leadership and taking accountability and apologizing and saying they're going to do things. And also, there's no we, it's him saying me as captain. I didn't do enough. I didn't do good enough and stuff like that. And I don't know, I liked it. So I mentioned the criticism he got. It's only fair that I mentioned when he addresses it. And I thought it was quite nice to see. I appreciated it. Frankie, anything you'd like to add before it disappear?
No, just the only thing that I've seen today that is quite an interesting thing is the Foundry. West Ham have released their community centre. It looks the business, mate. It looks superb. I think they'll do some fantastic work out there, but we've ended up with a community centre that looks better than our training ground. So we are capable of building nice looking facilities. It would just be nice for the club to go and now give us a similar standard of training ground for our Premier League football players and for our manager to work in.
Right, well, we'll leave it there. And thank you very much for joining us. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please do drop a like, comment, subscribe to Hammers Chat. And also, if you don't mind, download the Club Fantasy Football app using the link in the description below or the pinned comments. It helps the channel out a little bit. So thank you very much, Frankie. I'll catch up with you over the weekend.